Okay, so at this point, we really only have three things left that we need to do. We need to bring in our 3D model. Um, we need to tell the object sequencer what controls we're going to be using. And then the third thing is we actually have to move our model. Um, so let's start. Let's hit them one at a time. Hopefully, we'll get through the first two in this section, and then the last section will be the actual movement. So if we go to spot.xaml, um, right here is where we want to be able to see our model. This is actually what we're going to be seeing on the object sequencer. Um, Now, where we're going to put that is all of the information we want to put, we're going to put in between where it says grid and then the slash grid. Now, the first thing I like to do, if we highlight the grid, I like to be to change the background to black. That's up to you, what you'd like to do. But you can just change, select background, type in black, hit enter, and now our black background is black. So let's go ahead and get our 3D model and bring that in. You're going to be amazed how easy it is. So go to where you saved your model in the XAML. Right click it and click edit. This is all the code that it created when we ran that export script. So we just need to copy this in and put it between those grid markers. So press Control All will select all, and then Control C will copy that. And then we just go to our program here, put your cursor in between these, and Control V pastes it in there. Now you'll notice it put our object in there, all nice and pretty. We have our object in there. So real quick, let's run through, take a quick look at what this XAML is. If you scroll up, everything is expanded, so it's hard to read. Now, everything between viewport here and at the end there's a viewport. That is everything it imported. Now you'll see this is the camera. So let's just minimize that just to make it easier to read. And you'll come down here, you're going to see basically every object that was in our Blender model will come in as a separate object, and they will be grouped as 3D model 3D groups. So here's one of those lamps. If you remember, we put 4 lamps in ours. There's another lamp. There's another lamp. And here is our beam. That's the yellow part that we created. Now, keep in mind, each one of these Model 3D groups, these are each objects which we can manipulate. Here is our spotlight. That is the gray part we made. And there's our other lamp. So each of these objects are things that we can manipulate. We can manipulate the spot. We can manipulate the beam. And later we're going to have to figure out how we can manipulate both of them together. It's really simple. What I just wanted to show you is that each one of these Model 3D groups is actually an object in our 3D model. So basically at that point, that's objective 1. So the second objective was we have to basically tell the sequencer suite what controls we are going to be handling. Again, these controls are totally specific to your model, so whatever you need to handle is what you want to handle. Now, basically, we're just going to handle all the controls we're going to put in a list. So let's make a list and make it global. So we'll do it right here underneath the class. We're going to make a list of movable object controls. Let's call it controls. Let's call it model controls. Be a little bit more specific. Model controls. That's going to equal a new list of movable objects, or movable object controls. Okay, so now we have our list. Basically, at this point, we got to decide what controls are we actually controlling. Well, in our case, I think Spotlight, you'll pretty much just want to move it left or right or up and down. So we're going to have two controls. We're going to have let's call it a horizontal control for moving left and right, and a vertical control for moving up and down. So let's add those controls to our list. So all we have to do is model controls. We're going to add a new control. We're going to add a new movable object control. We're going to call the first one, we said it's going to be moving horizontal, so let's just call it horizontal. And if you put a comma here, you'll notice that you get the tips down here. Now these guys are pretty much the default values. The user, when they use your model, they can change these, but pretty much you're just giving suggestions on what the default values are. So let's just say that our Spotlight can move 90 degrees to the left, 90 degrees to the right. The Vixen values are going from 0 to 255, with 128 being the center. So 0, 128 is the center, and the positive side is 255. And let's just say most likely it's moving the mouse left and right, which is the mouse x-axis, is going to be what's probably going to be desired. So we can get that as access control. That's in Object Live. Dot mouse x. And you'll notice that this needs to be a string value. So dot to string. Okay. So now we have one control. Let's make another one, and since the other one's basically going to be pretty much the same as this, let's just copy all this and save our typing. And add a second one. We're going to want to do this vertical. And instead of the mouse X, which is the left and right, we want the mouse up and down probably. So let's just do this. Again, the user can change this. This is just your default values, what the user is going to start out with. Okay, you'll notice I have some errors because I forgot some parentheses. So let's just finish out the parentheses. Okay, so we have our controls. Now all we have to do is be able to tell them to the object sequencer. To do that, we just come down to update settings. And we're just going to, if you notice, the return value is a list of movable object controls. So we're just going to return our model controls. And when the object sequencer has an update that it needs to tell us, it's going to send us a list of movable object controls, and we will want to set our model controls equal to what it sends to us. That should be value. Okay, now we sent our model controls back and forth. That actually takes care of the third part, or I'm sorry, the second part in our objective list. Now, the last part is actually moving the model. And we'll cover that in the next section. But basically what we're going to want to do is, if the sequencer is sending us an update of our list, the movable object controls, what it's really saying is, okay, there's a change in rotation, model rotation, say the horizontal rotation or the vertical rotation, and it's going to give it to us. So as soon as we get it, we're going to want to start moving our objects. So basically right inside this set is where we're going to want to start moving our objects. But again, we're going to leave that to the next section. But at this point, we have enough that we should be able to build our project and at least see if it's somewhat working. So we just built it. Let's go into Vixen. Let's run Vixen. We're going to need to make a new sequence. I'm sure you've all done this a million times, so I'm just going to run through it. The only thing that we need to make sure is that there is audio assigned, because none of the add-in won't work without audio assigned. It'll tell you to add audio. So let's create that. I'm just going to overwrite a testing one that I had. Okay, so now we have a sequence. Let's go ahead and add our object sequencer. And now in the drop down, you will see that we now have our spotlight. So let's select our spotlight, click OK. You'll see right now we've got our horizontal and vertical controls. Something to keep in mind, when we send this, we have to know what order. We set the first one was horizontal, second one was vertical. We have to know that as programmers when we go to make actually do anything, because everything is going to be sent back to us in the same exact order. So click OK, and you will see we have our model now on the screen. Now you'll notice if we check these, it's not doing anything because we haven't told it to do anything yet. So just one more thing I want to take note of. Yeah, we'll go ahead and say that. Take note of, if you get an error saying that it's not a valid 32-bit application, what it could be is you are running, your system is a 64-bit system, and you might have to go into Spot properties, and under build, you may need to make sure that this is saying any CPU. Now, it is possible if you don't have this in your list, what you might have to do is go into Configuration Manager and create a new one in here. Under here, you can click New. You'll just select any CPU and copy the values from x86. Take note, when you do that, it's probably going to reset the output path, so you'll have to change that and put that back to where it was. So we're done this section. Believe it or not, we're actually almost done the entire thing. But the next section is a little involved, a little confusing, so we'll get to that shortly.